what if Social Security should go away? That's my question to you.
Because Social Security keeps 2/3 of our elderly out of poverty. And not only does it keep our elderly out of poverty, it's essentially a social insurance program that protects you if at the end of your life you don't have enough money to survive.
For right now, do you know that it's also the albatross around our generation's neck?
No, it isn't.
In today's video, Sam Seder takes apart Ben, a staunch Trump supporter, during an intense debate on Social Security featured on Jubilee. Ben comes in with some wild opinions, suggesting that slashing Social Security somehow benefits the working class. But Sam isn't having it. He brings solid facts to the table and exposes just how flawed Ben's logic is. Let's be honest, Social Security isn't a government giveaway. It's a program funded by the very people who depend on it through decades of hard work. But, as usual, the MAGA crowd conveniently overlooks that reality. Let's break down how Sam methodically shuts Ben down.
Okay, so
let me just explain this.
Well, you're going to go back to lecturing me about Social Security.
Well, that's what we're talking about. Social Security.
Yeah, Social Security is one of the top 3 funded.
Social Security is almost the biggest thing that our government does.
Exactly, and we are more than $30 trillion in debt.
Well, first of all, Social Security cannot contribute legally to the deficit.
Because they don't even account it in the federal deficit every year.
That's correct.
We have 30 years.
Self-funding. When Social Security started in 1936, you have more workers than retirees because people haven't entered into retirement. By 1970, it was at 3.5 to 1. Now it's at 2.5 to 1. But productivity has increased during that time, so the amount of money paid into Social Security has been up there. The reason why we are running out of money just for the trust fund, not for Social Security, like I say, if we do nothing with Social Security now, it is statutorily unable to contribute to the debt. The math is right there. The reason why the trust fund is running out is because wealth inequality has hoarded so much money above the cap.
You don't think it's because the government does a terrible job managing their money? They have a huge spending problem and they go, oh, look at all this money we have for Social Security that's earmarked for 60 years from now that we're just going to spend on something right now.
40 years ago, they predicted this. This is an actuarial table. Accountants sit there and look at it. This is a very easy math problem.
Accountants in the government are always right? That's totally the thing that you're saying? That they're always correct about money, right? That's why we have a $40 trillion debt problem.
The problem isn't the math with the $40 trillion debt problem. It's you have tax
cuts. It's the spending problem. I totally agree with you, which I would argue is part of why Social Security's gone in the hole already.
That's simply not true.
Oh, okay. So we're out of money from the Social Security bucket.
No. Statutorily, by that I mean by law, Social Security pays for itself. If we do nothing, the 6.2% that your employer and your employee pays into it will pay out 78% of benefits starting in 2033.
And why is it going down? If everything's so much better, why is it only 78%?
If we raise the cap, there's a cap right now at $176,000. So for instance, if you make $100,000, you pay $6,200 into that.
A year,
a year. But if you make $4 million, do you know how much money you pay into Social Security? $6,200.
To start, Ben's central argument is completely off base. He tries to frame Social Security as a part of the government's overspending problem. The truth, Social Security is independently funded through payroll taxes and doesn't add a penny to the national debt. It's not some discretionary expense. It's money workers earn and are promised back in retirement. Ben also tries to distract with talk of the national debt, throwing out the 40 trillion figure like it's relevant. It's not. That's like saying your car loan means you can't spend your own savings. The real drivers of national debt are tax breaks for the wealthy, bloated military budgets, and endless corporate handouts, not making sure our elderly don't go hungry. When people make the case that Social Security is one of the largest contributors to our spending deficit, that is a false claim.
And so why should wealthy people pay a higher percentage?
No, they should pay the same percentage. 6.2 on $400,000, 6.2 on $1 million.
And why should they pay even more money at all? Because they make more money? Again, you fundamentally have this idea that because somebody, you have an idea that because somebody makes more money, that's fundamentally wrong, right?
No, I don't think it's fundamentally wrong. I think that they should pay more taxes into it. Now, I do think as a society, We should not allow billionaires. So, for instance,
they can pay more taxes generally, but why should they?
The highest tax rate was and the greatest expansion of our economy.
Hang on, does a
country?
Billionaire get more money from Social Security if they went to go take it than I would?
No,
of course not.
Insurance.
So why should they pay more?
I'll tell you why. Because it is a social insurance program.
Hey, you there. If you guys like this video, please consider subscribing, dropping a like, and maybe commenting. This really boosts the video in the YouTube algorithm, and we would like to spread this message to as many people as possible. Let's get back to the video.
That keeps you from being in poverty when you're a senior. And the reason why I think billionaires should pay more taxes than other people, even a higher percentage, is because it works better for society. The greatest expansion we've had in this country in terms of economics and the least amount of wealth disparity was in the 40s and 50s and 60s in this country. Do you know what the top marginal rate was?
It was high.
Do you know what it was?
I don't know the exact number, but
if you made over $470,000 in 1955, every dollar you would make above that was taxed at 90%.
So I have a question.
90 cents on every dollar was taxed above 470. So if we had in today's dollars,
which is wild, by the way. But
it's also the greatest expansion we had of the economy.
Yeah, you can expand for a time, and then you see places. You see like Nordic countries that were like, oh, let's tax the hell out of our rich people, right? And then they go, whoops, we messed up. We can't actually live off of our terrible. We basically are able to live off our economic boom that they had between like the 40s and the 90s, and then we have to revert all of that because we made a terrible choice and we were able to have a party for 50 years until we realized we ran through all the money that capitalism got us. So let me ask you real quick. So the average person, right? Right now they fundamentally look at Social Security, young people like me, and they go, I'm going to have that money sitting waiting for me when I retire. Since your opinion is whatever works best for the average person is better, wouldn't you rather shift towards something that I would agree with, which is getting people that are 19, 20 years old into funding their own retirement rather than relying on other people to fund it for them?
Like the 401k.
Ben then shifts gears and attacks the Nordic model, claiming their higher tax rates have ruined those countries. That's just not true. Nations like Sweden, Denmark, and Norway consistently rank high in quality of life, healthcare access, and economic performance. They still tax the rich more heavily than the US, and guess what? Their economies are thriving. Ben also parrots the tired old line that young people should just save for retirement on their own, as if minimum wage workers in their teens can magically build a retirement fund. That's like arguing that we should get rid of healthcare and people should just be healthy. If they consistently worked out and ate healthily, there wouldn't be a need for healthcare. Absolutely ridiculous argument. Social Security was created precisely because personal savings alone can't guarantee security, especially in a world where wages lag, lifespans increase, 401ks don't work for everyone, and frankly, shit happens that you can't always plan for. Turning it over to Wall Street would just hand profits to the rich while leaving regular people at the mercy of the market. Again, much like the state privatized healthcare.
Sure, not just a 401k, but for IRAs, any other type of retirement. Would you agree? Would we agree with that?
Social Security was set up as part of a three-legged stool where back in the day when I was a kid, we had defined benefit pensions, where you'd know how much money you would get out. Yeah. That all shifted in the 80s to defined contribution, where you know how much you put in. The 401k started during that Reagan era. It has been a disaster because the fact of the matter, for better or for worse, people just don't save in the way that you're talking about.
Why?
It would be nice if they could.
If the government were changing the mindset and actually pushing that cultural shift towards, we're not just going to hand you money when you're 65. You have to plan for it right now.
We've had a 40-year experiment with that, the government affecting the cultural mindset, and it failed.
We've had a 40-year experiment of everybody. You know what my parents say? Do you know what grandparents say? They go, well, I'm just waiting for my Social Security check to come in, rather than I have $800,000 waiting for me because I thought about it when I was 19 and 20 because I didn't have this grab bag of money waiting for me. You're assuming that young people
I try and tell my kids.
So we agree. We should get rid of Social Security and phase it out. Well, no. So we should phase out. How would you listen to this idea? You phase out Social Security to where people who have 5 years left before they retire get 100% of the benefits, and then people like me who have 40 years until we retire.
Dude,
I'm not going to get it.
I'm
going to get screwed either way.
No,
you really think I'm going to get Social Security someday?
I guarantee you, at the very least, you're going to get 78% of your benefits.
That's awesome. I'll get $9,000 a year. That's great.
In calling for our government to increase the cap, in fact, get rid of the cap, then your grandkids will get Social Security.
I would much rather, and again, maybe we'll just disagree, but I would much rather result to, hey, 20-year-olds, please save for your own retirement, invest for your own retirement, because the government is bad at dealing with money.
And what happens
Don't rely
if they
on
don't?
them. What happens if what?
What happens if those 20-year-olds don't listen to you?
The same thing that happens if a 20-year-old just doesn't go and get a job because I tell them to.
No.
They're going to have a problem, but that's not my fault.
No, I got news for you. It's not your fault, but there used to be in New York City 30,000 people sleeping on the Bowery.
No one in this room was alive before Social Security. We've all lived under this, just like the
and
income tax.
It has been the most successful government program in the history of our government.
Things that are successful don't just start to die out and end up in the...
It's not dying out.
It's the grab bag of money, the massive excess that was there in the early years because of the 42-to-1 beneficiary.
There wasn't a massive excess in 1936.
42-to-1 is a massive excess.
There weren't that many people who had entered into the Social Security program.
And the fact that
in 1970, it was 3.5 workers to 1. Now it's 2.5, but productivity has increased it. I've told you why the Social Security Trust Fund is running out. It is because of wealth disparity. Billionaires hiding and hoarding their money above the cutoff line, which is $176,000. That's the cap. If you remove the cap, your grandkids
billionaires aren't keeping $2 billion under their mattress. They're investing it back into...
they're just putting it into some stock market, or they're just looking around.
And what do you think a 401k or an IRA relies upon? It relies on the stock market and things like that.
Yeah, a 401k relies on the stock market. And I knew people who were retiring in 2008 when the stock market tanked and they got screwed.
Well, that's a whole other problem. I would argue that's largely driven by the government being, once again, terrible with policy and creating bad economic hazards.
Social Security is there regardless of what happens with the stock market.
What really takes the cake is Ben claiming billionaires are investing their money when so many are hoarding wealth in offshore accounts, dodging taxes, and hiding behind shell companies. That's not stimulating the economy, it's gaming the system. The effective tax rate of the world's richest people is often lower than the bottom half of the spectrum. Billionaires aren't reinvesting out of some civic duty, they're working to protect their fortunes while average Americans carry the burden. Every paycheck from a regular worker helps fund Social Security, yet somehow they're blamed when the system faces strain. It's ridiculous. Sam nails it. If we really want to keep Social Security strong, we need to lift the income cap and make the ultra-wealthy fairly contribute. Ben's got nothing but recycled talking points and no real solutions. He's right that there is a problem, but he's wrong in how he thinks that the problem should be solved. That's a wrap from Eat the Narrative, where truth isn't polished, it's weaponized. If you guys enjoyed this content, please leave a like, drop a comment, and consider subscribing. I'll see you in the next video. Peace. That's a wrap from Eat the Narrative, where truth isn't polished, it's weaponized. Let me know what you guys think of today's video. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like, drop a comment, consider subscribing, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.